Why do we suffer? I mean, it's the big question, right? The one that's been around forever. Well, today we're digging into a pretty incredible answer from the philosopher Krishnamurti. He believed he'd pinned down the root of all our conflict to a single, fundamental clash that happens inside our own minds. It's a huge idea, and to really get it, we've got to start by looking at the world around us.
So Krishnamurti kicks things off with this question, and it's simple, but it's powerful. He just asks us to look around, at our lives, at the world, and be really honest. With everything constantly shifting, is there anything at all, that actually lasts? It's a question that gets right to the heart of what it means to be human. And for Krishnamurti, the answer is the key to, well, everything. And this, right here, this lays out the whole problem perfectly. On one side, you've got reality. Life is just constant change, it's flux, it's insecure. By its very nature, nothing sticks around. But then, on the other side, you've got what we desperately want. We crave security, certainty, something that will endure. And right there in that gap, that's the battleground. That clash is where Krishnamurti says all our suffering is born.
All right, so first up, let's just look at reality's side of the equation. According to Krishnamurti, it's a world defined by one single, undeniable fact. Everything changes.
And you know this is true. Just think about it. We see it in the big stuff, like wars and disasters, but also in our own lives, with loss and disappointment. Our ideas, our governments, even the relationships we think are rock solid are always in motion. Nothing ever just stands still. Now, Krishnamurti says if we could just see ourselves as part of this flow, there'd be no problem. But that's not what we do, is it? We fight it, and that's where all the trouble starts.
And that, of course, brings us to the other side of this whole equation, that deep, powerful, and very human craving for the exact opposite of all that change.
See, it's this hope, this stubborn little belief we cling to that there has to be something permanent out there. That's the real source of the problem. We're just not happy with things being temporary. So what do? We invent a state of permanence in our own heads. And all our conflict, all our fear, comes from that invention. But what is it exactly inside of us that's doing the inventing? What's the part of us that demands something that life just doesn't offer?
Well, Krishnamurti calls it the I. And no, this isn't your true self. It's more like a psychological construct, a little fortress you've built out of all your memories, your fears, your hopes, your experiences. This I, this me, is what's terrified of ending. It just wants to keep going, to be safe, and to dig itself in against that relentless tide of change.
So what does this little fortress, this I, do to protect itself from a world that's always changing? Well, it does what any fortress does. It builds walls.
And you can see exactly how it happens here. It's a chain reaction, really. It all starts with the basic desire to survive, which kind of naturally creates a fear of not surviving. That fear then makes the I desperate for security. And how does it get that? It builds these walls of resistance. Our most precious beliefs, our ideas of who we are, our attachments. And then, bam, conflict. That's what happens when those rigid, static walls inevitably crash into the fluid, moving stream of life. And this is where it gets really real, because this inner process totally poisons our relationships. Krishnamurti suggests that what we call a relationship often isn't a true connection at all. I mean, think about that. How often is it just a careful negotiation, my walls bumping up against your walls? It just becomes a state of friction, of competing ambitions and fears, all built on self-protection.
Okay, so right about now, you're probably thinking, I get it, I see the walls, so how do I fix it? How do I tear them down? But this is where Krishnamurti's whole teaching takes a completely radical, counterintuitive turn. Because the very effort you make to fix the problem, that is the trap. This is such a huge point. Any effort you make, any discipline you use, is still the I trying to get control and feel secure. Like, let's say you try to force yourself to be less anxious. Well, that very effort is coming from the anxious part of you that wants to be in charge. It's the mind trying to solve a problem that the mind itself created. You're just running around in circles, and every step you take just strengthens the bars of the cage.
I mean, really let that sink in for a second. Even that noble desire, you have to be free from fear. At its root, it's just another strategy. It's the I trying to find a safer, more comfortable position for itself. The wish to not be attached is still driven by the fear of suffering that comes from attachment. It's the same old game, just in a very clever disguise.
So if trying to fix this is the trap, then what in the world are we supposed to do? Well, according to Krishnamurti, the answer isn't an action at all. It's a completely different quality of mind, and he calls it awareness.
Okay, this idea is a little tricky, so let's unpack it. Awareness, for Krishnamurti, is not about doing anything. It's a state of just watching, with no judgment. Think of it like watching a river flow by. You're not trying to speed it up, you're not trying to stop it, you're not saying the water is good or bad, you are just quietly, completely aware of the river as it is. It's about watching the flow of your own mind in that exact same way.
So, just to be super clear, let's look at what awareness isn't. It is not an effort to overcome something. It is not a system you can follow. It is not the will to change. And it is absolutely not a search for some prize, like becoming enlightened. It is the complete opposite of all that striving and fighting we've been talking about.
And here's the kicker. This is the crucial part. When you're in this state of just watching without choosing or fighting, the mind starts to see its own tricks. It just reveals its own process, how it builds the walls, how it creates the fear. And in that simple act of seeing, with zero effort from you, the walls of resistance just start to dissolve, all on their own. They break down from the inside out.
So what's left when those walls are gone? Krishnamurti says what's left is a state he calls love. But this isn't the clingy, possessive love of the I. It's a state of being where you're not even aware of a relationship anymore, because there's no longer two separate people negotiating behind their walls. There's just connection, no conflict.
So we're going to end where we started, with a question for you. If every effort to change yourself, every desire to escape who you are, just tightens the knot of suffering, what would happen if you just stopped fighting? What happens when you simply watch? The answer, Krishnamurti suggests, might just be the very freedom you've been fighting so hard to find.